Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, today's video. Over there, Starflyer had a problem, so I want to look at that and try to figure out what's happening, because it's a really odd one, so let's get right into it.
Now get ready, here we go.
Okay, so this is a basically accident video over there in Birmingham. On Thursday, this would have been the 12th of December, the Starflyer ride, which is a portable version of a full-size Starflyer, although this one, although it's portable, is 180 feet tall, 55 meters. That's pretty crazy. It was operating in Century Square at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday when it dropped to ground level. Now, I've been pretty busy when I was notified. I was notified on Friday about it, and I started trying to find information. And I've been pretty busy over this past weekend, really busy. And honestly, I have been sick in the meantime, so a lot's been dragging me down. But I've worked on Starflyers before, and I'm like, how did this happen? So I've really been trying to find information on this, of which there's not. I mean, currently there's an active investigation going. 13 people were on the ride. A couple people were sent to the hospital with some pretty bad cuts and scrapes and bruises. Luckily, no one was killed in the accident, so that's always a positive thing. 2 people were arrested, which is not, and they've since been bailed. That's not a completely uncommon thing, because even here in America, a lot of times when there's a bad accident or sometimes a fatal accident, a lot of times it's the manager and director of the park that a lot of times get arrested because they need to figure out what's going on. They're essentially persons of interest at that point, but all the time you hear about arrests here. So they've been arrested. They've been arrested on, what was it? It was perversion of justice, which is essentially just they were thinking that they were obstructing justice for here in the U.S. anyway. I'm not sure what exactly they were doing. I've been told by you people who've contacted me, and I've talked back and forth with a handful of people, that that's just kind of a normal thing. It's what they throw out there in this sort of scenario. So it's like, okay, nothing too major. And of course, they've been put out on bail and released. So I don't think they were holding them thinking that they specifically did something. But moving on to the accident itself. So I've been trying to get eyewitness accounts of what happened, and it all seems to be, since there weren't that many people there, it seems to be just the same couple of eyewitness accounts that seem to be floating through the news. Not a lot of other information, honestly. And so the story goes, basically they got on the ride, everything was normal, it was cycling, and then they said while they were high up, the ride started going backwards. And now this is the first thing that caught me, is like, backwards. Some of you that have emailed me have sent videos of the ride operating normally, or at least YouTube links to the videos operating normally. So I was like, okay. I took a look at those videos, and I mean, it looks kind of like just a standard Starflyer. I mean, it sits there, it rises up, it spins, goes up the tower, continues to spin, comes back down the tower, slows down, and then goes back to the home position. Okay, it's my understanding that this particular model was one of the first Starflyer models. Maybe some of the programs and stuff haven't been quite developed the way that we come to know them today. That's why I'm wondering if some of the safety stuff wasn't there. Here's essentially the ride rising up, and then it parks. This is officially called from Funtime. This is the park position that it's in right now. And then once it reaches the park position, the rotation drive is enabled, and it's allowed to spin up. This is a perfectly fine working video of this particular model, this exact model. So we'll watch this just to see what it does. It's got a nice lighting package on it. So it looks like the star is pretty much up to speed now. The swings have a lot of centrifugal force on them. And then now the lift drive is enabled. The lift drive starts raising the tower, the star, up to the top of the tower. Now in these particular models, the drive system is at the very base. In the US, we have several models of these. The first couple of models, the drive system was actually at the very top of the ride, which meant anytime there was a problem with it and its general service, you had to go all the way to the top to service it. The next handful of models that came out, the one I worked on in particular, and the majority of them, that drive system is at the bottom at ground level, so it's easy to get to and work on. So this is pretty standard. It goes up to the top. The drive stops up at the top. The star continues to spin. It looks like a pretty constant RPM. And I imagine they probably don't have multiple cycles. The one we had multiple cycles programmed into it, but doesn't look like this one does. And then once it starts spinning up there, I mean, probably just runs for, I don't know what it's been, 30 seconds. It looks like the swings are starting to slow down now. Just typical of these rides. Towers drive enabled, bringing the star back down. Okay, the star is now slowing down. The rotation slows down. The vertical tower is now into that park position, and the swings have slowed back down almost to a stop. And then once it says, okay, my swings aren't moving anymore, they're below a certain speed, it says I'm going to lower back down into the load position. So you have load, park, and then top. And then there's limit switches up there to make sure it doesn't go too high. If it goes too high, it triggers an E-stop, shuts itself off. So it's coming back down to load, down, down, down. Now it's in its load position. Now they say, okay, it's safe to get off and everyone can get off the ride. Here's a picture of one of the swings that hit one of the lighting structures nearby that's on the outside perimeter. So they said in the accident that it started rotating backwards right before it fell. Now I have two problems. One is the rotation backwards and both things I have. I just want more information. I don't know if I'll ever get it. I don't know. But the first question I have is, did it actually rotate backwards? Was it rotating and then it slowed down and then started reversing? Was it a sudden jerk into reverse? Or did it suddenly just decelerate quickly? And people are like, oh, if it decelerated while I was on it, I would say, oh, it slowed down really fast. But these people are saying it went into reverse, started turning backwards. So I was like, okay, all right, what makes the ride suddenly go into reverse? Up on those star flyers, there's a handful of motor drives around that star in the center, and they have rubber wheels that simply just turn that star around and make it rotate while it's going up and down. There's nothing in there that's a really quick just reverse. There's nothing like that. The next thing is the fall. They were like, okay, it fell from up high. And then here's another picture of that particular swing. As you could see, the force had it way out here. So essentially to get out that far, it was still rotating at least probably a third to half its RPM. So it still had a pretty good rotation when it was coming down. Now, kind of with that story that this was rotation backwards from my understanding, which is just mind-boggling to me. I don't understand it myself. This has, normally with these crashes and stuff, I could put the pieces together and say, okay, I kind of think what this happened. This one is absolutely throwing me for a loop. I think it's the newer the old ride mixed up with some of this stuff. So let's look at another picture. Okay, so here's the ride taken from a high. This is after the accident. This isn't like stock footage. You can still see the swing wrapped up right there down in the corner. There's still some of the blankets that they use, the heat blankets, to keep people warm. The operator booth, someone came down on the operator booth, so there was damage to the operator booth. Back here, you could see the generator that runs it right there. And I asked someone who emailed me, I said, is that run off of like the city power, or is that off the generator? And they said it's more than likely off the generator. They're pretty sure it was off the generator. And that guy right there is the generator. And I keep saying generator because it's a fun word. No. I have a theory on this. It's the only thing I could think of that draws it together. But as you can see right here in the star on the top, here's the center of the star, swings anchored to it. I know a lot of you are thinking, yeah, I will also make a video. I'm not sure when I'll release it, but I'll make a video on how the Star Flyer works in general, although this is kind of like a quick rundown of it. I don't want to do too much here just because I'll bore everybody to death, like a normal video. See this. So there's a swing wrapped up on the corner, and then a pair of swings hit the operator booth as well. Here's another view of the ride. Now, on the fall, let's see, can I see it in this picture? Can't see it that great. Let me try a different picture. Okay, they said that it fell down. So the fall was the other thing I had the problem with. Okay, so it fell down and slammed into the bottom. It's like, honestly, I think there would be more damage to things if it fell. So did it go down really fast? Because right here, if you could see this, I'll kind of outline the edge of it right there. It's really hard to see in these pictures, but there's a very thin little line that's going straight up and down, one on each side. And that is essentially an elevator rail. It's shaped like a T if you look at it from the top, but it's like this. That elevator rail has an elevator fall brake on it. These things have fall brakes on them since they're lifted by cables, and the cables are attached to a counterweight. The counterweight's at the very top. In this picture right here, the counterweight is right there at the top. It's that little red thing right there. That is the counterweight to the star. So one of the things I was like, okay, did the cables break? Nope. If the cables broke, that counterweight would be down at the bottom as well. Okay, so the cables didn't break. Because I was thinking, cable break, it fell. The fall brake didn't grab for some reason. I can tell you one thing, when you don't constantly use that fall brake, it gums up. I mean, you have to keep it very well lubed, and all the mechanism has to be working properly. And when it sits outside all day, every day, it's hard to do. And the fall brake is a very intricate mechanism where it's not very idiot proof on there. If you let it gum up and you let it corrode and rust, it can prevent it from working. So like ours, we actually tested our fall brake weekly. We had a test to do it. The original Funtime program did not have a good way of doing this. The Funtime program, I want to say they tested it. It was something like every 3 months or every half a year. It was a long interval, and we were like, no, we need to test it more than that. So we tested ours quite often. So that was one of the things I was thinking, what did the fall brake not grab? Did the cables break and the fall brake didn't grab? Nope, that's not the case. The cables are all intact, the counterweight's up there, it's fine. So I've been trying to rack my brain. It's like, okay, what would cause the thing to suddenly reverse direction and fall? And the only thing I could think of is that the motors were told to go backwards. Okay, so we reversed the direction of the motors, and then the thing went down really fast. And then what happens is it's got cross switches on there. Cross switches are really interesting the way they work. It's a maintain position switch. So you have a flag plate on the star, and the cross switch the cross because it's actually 4. It looks like this, but I just represent that corner like that. So the switch is there, and the switch is telling the computer that the star is down right now. And then when that flag plate comes up, it pushes on that cross switch and it flicks it up. And then if you have a power outage or something else, it says, hey, the star is still up there. Okay. So one of the things I was wondering if it was going full down really fast, as fast as it could go, and then it suddenly blew by that cross switch, so suddenly tripped it down, and the ride wasn't expecting it. The ride was like, you shouldn't be right there, but it was. So it went into an e-stop. Now, when that ride e-stops, all those cables and the counterweight go over a set of sheaves that actually create the traction on the cable. There is drift when you e-stop that assembly. There is some drift to that. We actually had our engineers got in there and programmed it to say that when we went full bore in the up direction or the down direction, you e-stopped it, it would mark where the rotational drum was versus where the sheaves up on top were, because when you e-stopped it, the rotational drum just stopped. And the cables slid past those sheaves just a little bit, and it gave us a mathematical number. It was actually a measurement of how much slide those cables went over that. Well, if those cables get excessively greasy and the sheave gets worn down to where it's like it's like a nice smooth passageway, they should have kind of like a little bit of a, looks like the opposite side of the cable in them, then it could slide more. So I was wondering if it was going straight down, the star weighs more than the counterweight does, and then it's like, okay, it's going down, 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 and it went, oh crap, e-stopped, and it hit that, and then it continued to, there was not that much traction on that sheave, so it continued to go down until it hit the bottom bad. Not as bad as free falling, but it hit the bottom bad, and in which case the rotation would have still been going and swings would have still been going when it went below the park position. That's the absolute, like, you can't have rotation and the star below the park position, otherwise you will hit things with people. That is not good. So I was like, okay, I think we have that, like, maybe it slid, the cable slid, which allowed it to come down and actually slide past the park position when it triggered the e-stop and did that. Okay, so I think that's what happened. That kind of answers the crash part, but we still don't have the root cause. The root cause is the part that we don't know. Okay, that's back at the beginning when this started. They said it suddenly started going backwards, and everyone said, we've never seen it go backwards before. Apparently this is put up all the time. It's there. This is a repeat thing. So everyone said, we've never seen this go backwards before. Suddenly it went backwards. And I'm like, in those programs, you can run them in manual mode, but like ours, we ran ours backwards for like our fright time of year, and we had to have the engineers come out and they actually had to program the ride to run backwards because it didn't accept negative values into the drive system. And I'm like, okay, this is older. It's an older ride. It's probably still got drives and stuff in there, but they're not as smart. This is older stuff now. It's like, it's not that bright. It's old. Heck, maybe it's just contactors because it doesn't accelerate and deaccelerate that star. It's pretty much just stop, go, stop, go. I even wonder if there's a drive running the star or if it's just a set of motors and gearboxes with full phase power running to it. So then my attention shifted to the generator. All right. Remember the generator? That's this guy right here. Makes power for the ride. Well, on those generators, they have the capability to switch phasing. On the Funtime control cabinets, like actually the cabinets that where the PLC is and stuff like that, the logic controller, they actually have a switch on the cabinet. Now, we did on ours. I'm not sure how, if that switch is on every model. Maybe people, if you have experience with a Funtime Starflyer, you let me know, hey, does yours have a switch too? Ours actually had a switch in the motor control cabinet for phase reversing. So when you have three-phase motor rotation, it's always going 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, R, S, T, U, V, W. You just name it, right? It's got 3 phases that makes the rotation. On a 3-phase motor, all you have to do to reverse the direction is swap any of the 3 phases. Any. If I swap 1 and 2, motor goes backwards. If I swap 2 and 3, motor goes backwards. If I swap 1 and 3, motor goes backwards. All I have to do is take 2 wires off, switch them, put them back on. Well, for portable devices and things like that, I've seen this on multiple pieces of equipment. They have a phase reversing switch that does that exact same thing. And that is so you can hook up your ride and you say, okay, we got it hooked up to the generator. Yep, it took a lot of people. They had to hook big power cables up. It's a pain in the butt to put those things together. And then they go, turn it on, and they go, it's running backwards. Right, your drive motors and stuff are running backwards. It's like, oh, okay. Turn the power off, go in, clunk, reverse the phase, turn the power back on. Okay, now it's all running the right direction. It's no big deal. That's just a normal thing. When you rent generators and stuff for traveling type rides, you're not quite sure what the phasing is going to be. So I really wonder if this accident started with either in the control room, which I don't think happened. In the control room, someone flipped, for some reason, the phase reversing switch. That would be very malicious behavior. I really doubt that happened. Or, I don't know, someone has a lot of experience with those generators. Is it possible that the generator, because I know you can go into just a control panel and tell it to reverse its phases, swap 2 phases, and it will do it. I know it will do that. But I mean, I don't know if it'll do it under load. As far as the ride is concerned, when you take 2 phases and you reverse them and you make the whole thing run backwards, well, a lot of the times smart drives and things like that will recognize it and they will stop. Or if they have a lot of capacitors and stuff like that inside of them, they essentially don't care. They could just keep going and just reconstruct the power on the other side in the correct manner that you want. But I'm wondering if this is just an old ride with lots of old contactors and stuff in it. Some drives, yes, like the main drive for up and down of that star is a pretty complex drive, probably. But I'm wondering if the rotation's not that complex, or even if the lifting motor's not that complex. So I kind of wonder if the thing was just had its phases reversed to it. When you do that, if it's a old piece of equipment, everything just suddenly runs backwards. Okay, so if they were going up, because again, we don't have a good eyewitness account, we don't have video for this. If the motor was told to go up when this happened and the phases got swapped, let's just say, then where it went up, the ride would suddenly go where it was going up at full speed. Now the ride suddenly goes down at full speed. And where it was going forward, now it goes reverse. So now we have our criteria met of going down fast, going in reverse. Okay, now the PLC doesn't care because it only runs off of 1 phase of power. It steps down 1 phase and it doesn't care because it goes through a little buffer system. It still has its power. It's still good. For the most part, everything is just running tack symbol. It's just looking for my up and down signal on that drum or simply just clicks. They're not a rotation signal. It doesn't know which way it's going, essentially. The older stuff like that, they do that all the time. They'll use a spoke drum and just count the spokes as it goes by. So they know that the drum's moving, but they don't know which way it's moving. That happens all the time with old stuff. So it's like, okay, it was going, reverse the phase rotation. It's like, all right, everything's still clicking. The drum is still moving. All the cables are still moving. So the ride's like, yep, everything's fine. Suddenly the lower cross switch goes like that. And the ride goes, oh crap. For some reason, the star is at the bottom of the ride. And the drive is still on. So it drops the drive out and e-stops the ride. And the cables slide past that sheave just a little bit more than it should. And the thing goes bam on the bottom. And hits. And people are in the sides at that point in time. Now, all speculation, right? 100% speculation. I really don't know exactly what happened. But that makes sense to me. Now, how you reverse the phases without someone standing there doing it, I don't know. Could there have been somebody there that night? Yep. And they're just like, oh, we're having trouble with this piece of equipment over here. And they went to this generator right here. And they're like, oh yeah, this is the one that runs that. Not thinking like, by the way, it's running that ride too. And they're like, oh, that thing's running. Oh, that's easy. We just go to the generator and we just go, and we just flip it and tell it to reverse its phases. And it does. And then the ride goes down that way. I'm really curious to see what happens with this because I can't make heads or tails out of it other than this really weird scenario where somehow phases become inverted and the ride's dumb enough to where it doesn't understand that it's running backwards now. I mean, what are the chances that it actually happened the way I just described it? I give it 50-50, right? It's an old ride, does old stuff. I know Funtime's programming before our engineers got a hold of it wasn't the best, but it was what they knew to do with their stuff, which is a whole different story. We'll get into that in a different video. Okay, I think I've done enough here. Sorry again, this was so late. I know it happened on Thursday, and then it went through Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Here it is, Monday night. No one over there is going to see this till Tuesday, so I do apologize for that. But that's what I was able to do. Let me know what you think. Possible. Anyone have any other ideas? I mean, I think we're all open for it at this point, including the people that are probably still doing the investigation as well. All right. Like, subscribe, share, comment, do all that stuff downstairs. Don't forget to stay off the air gates. Bye.